this time of year. And staying with money, an Aston Martin, an Omega watch, and a flashy mobile phone. No, not my Christmas wish list, rather some of the products placed in the latest Bond movie, Quantum of Solace. E.T. is credited as the film which launched product placement with Reese's Pieces. Since then, scores of companies have vied to get their products in the latest blockbuster or the TV series. But what about when brands actively stop producers from using their products? Well, Danny Boyle, director of Train Spotting and The Beach, has a new film out in a couple of months called Slumdog Millionaire. I can't even bring myself to say it. Slumdog Millionaire. Chris Hackley is a professor of marketing at the Royal Holloway University of London. What's the story with this movie, Chris?
Well, it's quite unusual because whilst brands do go to a lot of quite a lot of lengths to police their copyright ownership, it's unusual for a story to get out that a brand apparently gave permission and then decided to change their minds.
And why would they want to do that? What was so terrible about this and the placement of their product alongside it?
Well, as I understand it, Mercedes, I should say a well-known German car manufacturer, were very happy with the idea that their product was photographed in front of a mansion. But when they realised it was going to be involved in a car chase through a Bombay slum, they went very cool on the idea.
And to what extent can they actually control how they're shown on screen? I mean, what could they do if it was done?
It really depends on the circumstances. In countries, as you no doubt know, product placement on British TV is officially not allowed. But in many countries it is, in TV shows and movies, and brand owners can write very specific contracts and exercise some creative control over the way their brand is portrayed in the show. Other brands take the view that exposure is good, all publicity is good publicity, and they simply rack up the number of seconds of exposure on the screen and regard that as favourable. So,
I mean, are some of them wondering, would there be a backlash against too much product placement? I mean, like the Bond films, for example.
Well, unquestionably, there's quite a lot of research on this, and consumers generally like product placements. They get irritated by spot advertising, which interrupts their enjoyment of entertainment.
And it's real, isn't it? That's the point. It looks real to some extent.
Well, program directors need it because the genre now is dramatic realism, and they need brands in the shows for verisimilitude. It looks silly to have masked out brands in a TV show or a movie. So the directors need it, and even though it's big business in the UK, in spite of Ofcom's claims, and also in other countries, the majority of brands we see on TV are still not necessarily old movies, and not there by arrangement, but because directors need them.
Oh, right. So in that case, do they have to pay to have their products placed? Are they allowed to pay to have their products placed?
Oh, well, in other countries, absolutely. Yes, they do. And brand placement or product placement represents a very significant revenue stream. In the USA, for example, it's estimated up to $10 million a year is generated by program makers from product placement. So, yeah, it's a very important stream of revenue for them. But in the UK, of course, the British program makers are not allowed to touch this, even on imported shows, because it may sort of sully their purity.
Right. Now, we know advertising revenues are falling. ITV wants the ban on product placement lifted in the run-up to Christmas. Is that likely to happen?
Well, at the moment, the picture is a bit bleak because in response to the EU's Audio Media Services Directive, the Media and Culture Secretary, Stephen Byers, and several other MPs have come out with very strong statements against allowing product placement on British TV. But it's rather an odd position because in the current policy vacuum, people are making their own arrangements, and product placement under the guise of free prop supply is a big business in the UK. But the agencies are making the money, and the program makers aren't allowed to.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. You say the prop supply. So there's a kind of unofficial dealing going on. They're trading one thing for another. It's almost a swapsy kind of situation.
Well, yeah. There are many agencies in the UK which have a thriving business. They take a retainer from a client and they provide free, in brackets, props to program makers. And sometimes they provide agreements in kind by providing free cars or whatever. That the problem is, of course, from the brand client's point of view, they're getting a huge leverage out of this because they're underpaying for the exposure they get on British television. The program makers aren't allowed to take it, and the agencies are doing good business.
So really, we do need some. It would be logical to have some kind of change to formalise this situation, wouldn't it?
Well, in my opinion, there's a very strong case for Ofcom formulating some policy which allows program makers to receive some of the revenue for brand placement, but also makes it very clear that creative control must retain with the program maker and with the creative director. I mean, one of the fears that Stephen Byers expressed was that programs would be ruined by very artificial product placements. But the truth is, brands are all over British TV already, and mostly they're not noticed. And of course, the imported American shows, some of the best shows in the world, are full of them.
And from what you say, they're quite often there anyway. It's that way round, where the company says, this fits in with the scene, we'd like it there.
Well, exactly, and it's not only the brand owners, but the program and movie makers who look for a good fit. And this happens where there's dialogue between them on the creative development of the entertainment product. The agencies and the movies know that the best kind of brand placement is a subtle one, which you don't really notice and doesn't distract from the narrative development.
Professor Chris Hackley, thanks very much indeed. Just a couple more of your emails on pubs. We've had quite a lot on this.